Hello and welcome to another episode of the Farr Show, where I am Damien Farr, and tonight we are talking about extra special things, my favorite films of all time. So, I want to preface this here. All of these movies are personal opinion. Some of these, I'll be honest, I didn't even give perfect reviews. But I like them so much that I gotta put them on my list. So, there's a part of me that's a reviewer Damien, and there's a part of me that's personal Damien. Part of me, some of these movies, I'll honestly say, are not great. And if I reviewed them on my show, they're not Farr. But they are my favorite films of all time. So this is my opinion. So we're going to start off with here, Armageddon. This movie is not great. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This movie is a popcorn movie. But why do I pick it? It's one of my favorite movies just because the cast is amazing. Though they're in a really ridiculous plot, like why would NASA send oil drillers up there instead of teaching NASA space astronauts, how to oil drill? That I don't ever understand, but it's a movie. It's just a movie. But Don't Want to Miss a Thing is a great song, and it's a great movie overall. Cast is great. I just love, the plot is simple. It's just a meteor that's going to destroy Earth if it hits. So they gotta blow it up in half. I mean, that's literally the plot. But it's just like a coming together movie. Everybody comes together in the world. The scene of just, everybody watching as the meteor erupts is just like, wow. It's good. And Liv Tyler just, touching the monitor, seeing Bruce Willis for one last time is amazing too. So, it's one of my favorite movies. Like I said, not a great movie overall. Not a technically good movie, but one of my favorites. Then we got Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. I felt like for some reason this needed a bigger, wider shot. So, Infinity War and Endgame. Why do I put them together? Well, they're part 1 and part 2. Let's just be honest there. Infinity War, you need Endgame. Endgame, you need Infinity War. Which one do I prefer? I think Infinity War is just a hair better, but I combine them into one movie in my mind. They're one movie. So, all these movies of MCU have been leading up to this moment, and it delivers. That's really all there is to say. It delivers. These movies are amazing. Then we got, with the Spidey Cam, because it's James Bond, I felt for some reason that the Spidey Cam was the way to talk about it. I mean, Sony had the rights with Columbia Pictures for James Bond for a long time there, and this one was Columbia Sony, so I feel like the Spidey Cam ironically works here. Great. First one with Daniel Craig. Probably the best Daniel Craig James Bond movie. I'm gonna be honest. Bond is one of my favorite properties out there. I love the movies. I love the video games. Most of the video games and most of the movies. And then also I really enjoy the books. I've read one of them so far. I want to read all of them, to be honest. All the Ian Fleming ones. So this one's the best. The opening scene alone, just the parkour. It was something you've never really seen in a Bond movie. Is him doing parkour, chasing after somebody. But I thought that was great. The whole movie is great. I can't spoil it though. I mean, it's Casino Royale. They play cards in a casino at one point. But the suspense is just so high that I definitely recommend watching if you have not. Then we got Deadpool and Deadpool 2 and Once Upon a Deadpool in here as well. Deadpool 1 and 2, both amazing movies as well. Where I'm going to be completely honest, I kind of skipped it. We're going to come back. These are in alphabetical order. We're going to come back to some movies that I put on here. Deadpool 1 and 2, though. I mean, it's Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds took forever to get these made, but I'm happy he did. Eventually, they did get made, and that's all that matters. So, Deadpool 1 and 2 is hilarious. He makes fun of everything and anything. I've always wanted to see a Deadpool cartoon, though, that's like rated R, and I really wanted the Donald Glover show to happen, but it never did, but that's okay. Maybe one day Donald Glover and Ryan Reynolds can work together on it, and I think that would be a match made in heaven. So, then we got Die Hard. Die Hard is probably my favorite Christmas movie ever. Other than maybe Charlie Brown Christmas. But we got a Christmas tree here. I mean, Die Hard. It's Christmas season. Die Hard is literally one of those movies that anybody can be like, nowadays wouldn't be great. Because let's be honest, you remake this movie and it's not set in the 80s, you're going to lose a lot of this situation. I mean, the broken glass thing was amazing where, he takes out, to get rid of jet lag, somebody told him, you take off your shoes and rub your feet on the carpet. and then that causes him to step in broken glass later on in the movie, which is pretty amazing or not foreshadowing, but setup. Then the fact that, well, if he's in the actual building, if he has a cell phone, he could have just called the cops. So, he's alone there. And then also the phone could have been used for the light instead of the lighter that he had, which I thought was kind of sweet. But instead of the lighter, instead of doing the little light up scene, which I'm awkwardly trying to pull out my lighter here, instead of doing the awkward scene of him like crawling through the ducts, which I'm not going to crawl, but instead of him crawling through the ducts, with the lighter, it could have just been him, with the phone lighting up. So, that's a much better alternative, to be honest. So I like that. Then we got Fun with Dick and Jane. One of those movies that, once again, not the greatest movie ever made, but something about it I really love. Maybe it's Jim Carrey and how I just remember that grass scene where he's running to get grass to, put his lawn back together, which looks ridiculous, and just the reaction of his neighbors because they're missing part of their lawn is hilarious. Then we got probably my second favorite movie of all time with its sequel, Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. I know what you're thinking. Damien, you put Ghostbusters 2 in here? I think you need Ghostbusters 1 and 2. And to be honest, you need Ghostbusters the video game. And whenever I do that favorite video games of all time, Ghostbusters the video game is 100% on there. But Ghostbusters 1 and 2, amazing. Every time I watch these movies, I laugh a little more because, to be honest, when you're a kid, you just want to see the ghosts. And you don't really get the comedy. But as you get older, the comedy just gets better and better. I look at Bill Murray's face and just want to laugh a little bit at this movie. So, definitely Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are 100% worth watching. Then we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2. Personally, which one do I prefer? I prefer Volume 2, but that's because it had the sentimental impact on me. But Guardians 1 and 2, both amazing Marvel movies. They're the most different of the Marvel movies, too. They kind of go with the formula of Marvel, but at the same time, they're set in space, they're a completely different area. Most of the Marvel movies are set on Earth, for the most part, except Infinity War and Endgame, and ironically enough, one that's going to be coming up later, but we're not talking about that yet. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, I like the cast. Chris Pratt as Star-Lord is amazing. Zoe Saldana, their love story and their chemistry is so good. I just can't fault it. Like, both of them are amazing. Then we got one that people are probably going to laugh at, but Hancock. I love this movie. This is Will Smith's best superhero movie. Suicide Squad doesn't exist. What was that? Honestly, though, I think it's hilarious that he's an alcoholic superhero that's going through a rough patch. Or, rough everything. He's not a great superhero. He's a terrible superhero. He tries to help, but in the end, he causes more damage than he does help. So if he just left it up to somebody else, it'd probably be for the best most of the time. Then we got Heaven Can Wait. And this movie, once again, another love story movie. There's not too many love stories in here, but this movie is a really good romantic comedy. Warren Beatty writing this movie, he wrote a pretty good movie. It's a remake of another movie, but I like the fact that he's a football player that dies. He gets to become the owner of the Rams and then becomes the star quarterback of the Rams, which is really weird, but I think is awesome at the same time. It's definitely a movie that I can't really do justice talking about, so definitely give it a watch. Then we got Hitch. Hitch is not a movie that I would be looking at this for, to be honest, but I'm just kind of doing it in an order that I feel works. So, Hitch, great movie. Kevin James, not a big fan of Kevin James, but I think he does amazing in this movie. This is just one of those movies that anytime it's on TV, well, most of these, anytime they're on TV, I can just start watching. This one, 100%. I've done it multiple times where I have plans, and I don't cancel plans, but I put off the plans a little bit longer because Hitch is on. And I want to watch Hitch. That's really all there is to say. Hitch is great. Then we got iRobot. And once again, we're doing to make a connection to my favorite video games of all time thing, which is iRobot and Halo 4, or Halo 2, they came out the same year. They have similar tunnelways and similar vehicles. So for some reason, that tunnel scene in iRobot and the tunnel part in Halo 2 are always linked together in my mind, and I'm okay with that. I think both of them are great. iRobot is pretty much, there's one robot who doesn't have to obey laws that are set by robotics, but at the same time, he's a good guy, and he never actually meant to kill the creator of the robots, which is pretty sweet. But it's definitely a movie that I'd recommend watching. Inception, I think Chris Nolan's probably his best film. That might be going on a limb there. I would say it's definitely one of his top films, though. It's not the only one in here for me. Then we got, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, before he was super well known for everybody. This was the movie that I'd say put him on the map, to be honest, that everybody knew him then. Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, all a great cast that started off here, and they got amazing. Chris Nolan just writes such a weird movie. Like, what if you go within a dream, within a dream, within a dream? What happens? Well, I like his time sense here, where if you go in a dream, so a day in a dream is, like a couple minutes in the real world. I think that's pretty ingenious. And then he kind of went with it in Interstellar as well. I don't have Interstellar on here, but I definitely love that movie as well. I thought about putting it on here, but I didn't. And then we got The Joker, which Joaquin Phoenix, probably the best Joker. Probably. There's two that I would say are the best, but we'll get to the other one soon enough. I do love Jack Nicholson Joker as well, but, no offense to Jack. His is a product of the time and doesn't hold up as well as Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger when we get to it later. So, I think The Joker is a great film. It's really a character study on what happens to somebody when they go insane. We don't know. Did he make all this stuff up in his mind? Is he just in a coma or something? I mean, I knew right away when I was watching it, spoiler, that the girl was not actually his girlfriend, that he was just imagining it the whole time. I said to my buddy, this is all a dream. And he's like, no, it's not. And then we got to it later on, and I just looked over at him and was like, yeah, it was. So definitely a good movie. Then we got Kong Skull Island. This movie is great as well. I wouldn't say it's the best monster movie ever, but I just love the color palette. Just something about this movie. Like the color grading or the color palette. It's so good. This is definitely a movie that you should watch. The plot, pretty simple. They go to an island, or they get trapped on an island. They go to an island to search for Kong, and then, they screw with Kong, and then they all end up almost dead, and then eventually escape the island. But I love this movie. I think, personally, the color just is so popping. I don't know what to say. When you look at King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong, it's all dreary and colorless. And then you look at this, and you're like, whoa! Looks like an LSD trip. Then we got Leatherheads, which is George Clooney's romantic comedy where he is an older football player at the end of his days and pretty much has given up, in a way, I would say. And then he gets the star player on his team from college onto his team, and they start winning together, and they have a falling out, and pretty much they face each other in the last game of George Clooney's character's career, and he gets the girl. That's pretty much the gist of the movie, but it's well acted, well directed, everything's well about it. Then we got Logan, which, I want to preface this. Logan, amazing. If you can watch Logan Noir, watch Logan Noir, though. 100% worth it. I don't know why it's not on Google or anything, though. It's only on Blu-ray, which is weird to me. But if you can watch it in black and white, watch it in black and white. I also want to set up here X-Men Origins Wolverine, another video game that's going to be on my favorite video games list. The movie's terrible, but the game is amazing. So, I love this movie, though. It's the end of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and then, the future is me. So, it's a great movie overall. It's 100% worth a watch. Then we got Predator, which I'm looking at the wrong camera. Now I'm looking at the right camera. Predator. We're talking Predator, the first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The manliest handshake ever will be right there. This is a great movie. It's a great action flick. There's nothing else to say. If you've not seen it, it's pretty much a group of guys tries to go to, I think it's like Colombia or something like that, and they try to free some prisoners, and in the end they meet the Predator by mistake, and the Predator rips them apart, except Arnold Schwarzenegger stops it. And now we got it. Favorite movie of all time, probably one of my favorite movie franchises with Star Wars, the MCU, James Bond. James Bond is probably first, and then it's Star Wars, and James Bond's up there. Top 5, I can't complain. These are all great. But we got Rocky, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Creed, and Creed 2. That's why I skipped them earlier, because I felt this was the better place to talk about them. Creed and Creed 2 are great. Rocky 2, 3, and 4 are great, but Rocky is my favorite movie of all time. I always put it on here. Anytime I'm talking about Rocky, it's always an Farry. This is literally my favorite movie. You can't see it here, but it is the best movie. Rocky, what is there to talk about? Underdog story, comes back, wins in the end in Rocky 2. So, great movie, 100% worth watching. Let's move on to Rush Hour 2, and Rush Hour 3. We're kind of condensing some of these into groups because they're, well, the same movie in a way. So I feel like the best way is to talk about them in together. Rush Hour 1, 2, and 3, all amazing. Rush Hour 3 is a drop, but I feel if you're going to watch them, watch all 3 at that point. Like, Chris Rock and Jackie Chan just work together so well. I didn't expect them to work together well, but they work together amazingly. So I thought that was great. Then we got Skyfall, another James Bond movie, which, is that a surprise? Not Daniel Craig's best outing. I think it's his second best outing. Casino Royale is still my favorite. I remember when watching Casino Royale in a camping yard on a portable DVD player that we rented it. I still remember that moment. I still remember the first time I watched it on Blu-ray and the blue in his eyes. So Casino Royale will always hold a little bit more special place in my heart, but Skyfall is an amazing movie. Man, Javier Bardem just nails it. Judi Dench, her last Bond movie, which is sad, but at the same time understandable. I think it's an amazing movie. I think if you have to watch 2 James Bond movies, honestly, if you're picking 2 of Daniel Craig's, these are the 2. Then we got Spaceballs, which is another one of my favorite movies. It's a parody of a movie that I'm going to be talking about later, but Spaceballs, I have it's pretty much Star Wars, but comedy. And Darth Helmet, I want an action figure of him. I will buy it 100%. Then we're talking 3 here. Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. At this point, I've talked about these movies so much that I don't feel I need to talk about them too much. So, we're going to kind of move ahead, which is to Star Wars. We've talked about Star Wars a lot of times as well. We got Star Wars Episode 3, Episode 5, Episode 7, and the original. Those are my favorite movies, really, of Star Wars. Star Wars is one of my favorite franchises, once again. So, some of these we're kind of going quickly through because, well, we've been going for a long time at this point. Let's go on to the next one, which is Thank You for Smoking. It's a comedy movie where Aaron Eckhart, before he was Two-Face, was a guy who promotes cigarettes and has to make smoking look good. And then he nearly dies from smoking and then quits his job. It's a really good movie. I'd recommend it 100%. Then we got Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, not the second one. And I know what you're thinking. Damien, where's Spider-Man? Just, Tobey Maguire. Personally, I grew up around the time that Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man, but I was too young to really appreciate him. And he never really grew on me. I loved Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, though. And Tom Holland, I think, is even better. So personally, I love The Amazing Spider-Man. I wish they'd make a third one, to be honest, and complete his, trilogy at least. Maybe even put him into the Spider-Verse somehow. They're bringing Electro, Jamie Foxx back, so that gives me some hope. Then you got The Blues Brothers, which is one of the only musicals I really watch or listen to. I just love their style. I love the music. I love everything about it. Then we got The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. 2 of the best superhero movies ever made. I think The Dark Knight is definitely superior, but I think people are sleeping on Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy had to go like this the whole time and was only acting with his eyes. So, you were looking at him, but you never actually could really see his mouth or any of his facial features except his eyes and his eyebrows. So the fact that he was able to act was insane. Then we got The Fifth Element. For some reason, The Fifth Element ironically comes up now, right before Monster Hunter is about to come out. The Fifth Element is amazing. Another Bruce Willis movie where, I mean, he's a taxi cab driver in the future, and he ends up meeting the Fifth Element, which is played by Mila Jovovich. I don't know how to pronounce her name. But it's such a good movie. Definitely worth a watch. I would say it's definitely not an FARR, that's for sure. It's definitely an FA probably, but I love this movie so much that I will watch it no matter what. Then we got The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2. They take place so far apart, and we're talking Iron Giant. And why are we talking all three of these? Well, because Brad Bird wrote and directed all three of these, and these are, I think, his three best movies. Ratatouille is good. The Mission Impossible movie that he directed was amazing. He also did Tomorrowland, which I've never seen, but I plan to watch eventually. And I think all these are good movies. The Incredibles 1 is probably the best. I think it's like an arc. So it's the first one, or The Iron Giant's good. Incredibles is great. Incredibles 2 is still great. On par, at least, with The Iron Giant. And then The Iron Giant, well, I mean, The Incredibles is pretty much about a family that has superpowers. The Iron Giant is about an Iron Giant coming from space and becoming friends with a little boy who has a single mother, and I really relate to that. As a boy who grew up with a single mother, that's kind of a movie that I latched onto. I had the little figure from the VHS and still would love to have that again eventually. Then we got The Martian, which we're looking at the Sony Spidey Cam, though I really wish I had the GoPro right now because they use the GoPro so much of that movie that it's just ridiculous. They do all these over the like shoulder camera shots of him walking on Mars, and it's cool. It's the movie that made me want to buy a GoPro, for lack of a better term. Though I like the Sony Spidey Cam better, I still want to buy the GoPro from the movie that they use. Pretty much it's about a guy who gets stranded on Mars. The book is amazing. This is amazing as well. I think the book is a bit better, don't get me wrong, and I'm not the biggest Matt Damon fan, but I think Matt Damon nailed it. Then we got the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. And wow, this is a good movie as well. This is one I grew up with. The movie video game is probably my favorite games of all time, even though it's probably not the best. It's a great movie overall. Definitely worth a watch. Then we got Transformers, the 1980 cartoon movie, which they killed off all these characters. It was pretty much a glorified cartoon, or a glorified TV ad for buying more toys, and I love it anyway. I think it's great. I think it's cool that they had the guts to kill off all these characters, though at the same time I feel bad for the story writers because Hasbro was probably like, hey, kill them all off so we can make more toys, and that's what they did, and it was a ballsy move, and I love it still. Then we got the Truman Show, which is pretty much a movie where it's about a guy who grew up in, for lack of a better term, captivity, where they built a fake world around him, and he lives on this island where he doesn't leave. And eventually he starts thinking about a girl who told him, "You're in a show. This isn't real." And it started to grow and fester into his mind, and eventually he tries to leave, and he does. Then we got Thor Ragnarok. Another MCU movie. This is the last MCU movie on this list, but Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor movie. And I know what you're thinking, Damien, you put Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp in front of Thor Ragnarok when you review it. Yes, I love Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, but that's partially due to Paul Rudd. If Paul Rudd wasn't in there, I don't think I'd like it as much. But Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor movie, and I'm excited for Thor Love and Thunder. I'm curious to see where it goes from there, and see what happens with the next one. I can only wait. I really hope that Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy are in Thor Love and Thunder, and then eventually they break off, and then it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 takes place, and then Thor Love and Thunder. But I'd like it to see it in the beginning of the movie, like the first 10-20 minutes that they break off. I think that'd be pretty sweet. Then we got Transformers Dark of the Moon and the original Transformers movie, both Michael Bay movies. Once again, not great movies overall, but I remember growing up with Transformers, so I just have to talk about it. Transformers Dark of the Moon is one of my favorite games as well, ironically enough. I love that game, and these movies are both great. Why do I pick these two of all of them that have been made? Well, the first one, I've seen it so many times as a kid that I couldn't not put it on this list. And Dark of the Moon, I think arguably is better than the first one. Revenge of the Fallen, while the force fight is amazing, that's the only good part of that movie. Age of Extinction and... I don't even remember the one that came after Age of Extinction. Was it Age of Extinction? I don't even know anymore. And I haven't seen Bumblebee, so I can't really comment on that one. But those... Oh, man. The Mark Wahlberg ones are terrible. I mean, unwatchable almost. I've never left a movie theater and went... Oh, it was The Last Night. Age of Extinction and The Last Night. Somehow I just thought of that. So, I wouldn't watch those, but these two are good. Skip Revenge of the Fallen, and you're still not going to miss much. Then we got Tron Legacy, which I've talked about, I think, once or twice on the show. Tron Legacy is a great movie. Well, the people who grew up with Tron love Tron more. I think Legacy was great. I watched it when I was like 15, and it still holds up. I still love watching it every day. I could watch this movie all the time. Part of the reason it holds up, the special effects, other than the Jeff Bridges face thing, which I think they should update, other than that, the plot, pretty sweet. The CGI is amazing, and the soundtrack by Daft Punk is just perfect. Then we got Tropic Thunder, which is a comedy movie where it's about actors who are not really acting well, and they nearly get screwed, for lack of a better term. So, Tropic Thunder is Ben Stiller making, I think, his directorial debut, and he wrote part of this movie, and it's a great movie. It's, like I said, about actors who are not doing well while acting, and then they end up getting put into a real war situation, which I think's hilarious. Then we got Venom. Once again, another Tom Hardy movie where Venom is not a great movie per se, but I just love it. I think it's hilarious that everybody's making a serious movie, pretty much, and then Tom Hardy's like, am I making a buddy cop movie in a way? Him and Venom are like buddies, and at the same time, they butt heads. It's pretty much if you took Lethal Weapon, put the two characters in one, and made them both insane. I think that's great. So, Venom, 100% worth it. Ruben Fletcher directed it, and ironically enough, we're talking about more Ruben Fletcher movies. Zombieland and Zombieland Double Tap. I think Zombieland holds up amazingly. Zombieland Double Tap is on par, if not better than the first one. The fact that they got all the original cast back alone is surprising, because if you look at them, the only one that was Academy Award nominated at Zombieland's, which was Woody Harrelson. I think he won Academy Award at one point. Jesse Eisenberg's gotten better, Emma Stone's gotten better, and I always forget her name, Abigail Benson got better, and man, the fact that they could keep them all and make a movie. I really hope they make a third one. Or a prequel with Bill Murray about how he survived all this until, Zombieland 1 happened, spoiler. And then we got, finally, the last movie on this list. This has been a long, long video, but 500 Days of Summer. This is an amazing movie as well. This is probably the best romantic comedy you'll see on this list, and I will watch this movie all the time. It's about Tom, who meets Summer, and it's about his 500 days of his relationship with Summer and how it has its ups and downs. And it's a non-linear fashion, which at first, the first time I saw it, I did not read This Is Not a Love Story at the beginning because I missed the first 15 minutes, so I was sad at the end. But, it's a great movie. So, tell me in the comments below, what are your favorite movies of all time? You don't have to have this many. I mean, give me a list of 5. It doesn't have to be this many because I've been thinking about this for a while and started to put them all in here. And I'll be honest, if I think of more, I'll put them in the comments and add them in. But for now, this is what I got. Ironically enough, I'm noticing it here. Between Logan and Predator, there's a huge gap. I guess I don't have any M movies, O movies, so that seems like a huge gap. But hopefully you like this one. Hopefully you want to see more. Like I said, video games is coming sooner or later because I want to do footage for those video games where I show the footage of some of the game being played. So, once again, tell me in the comments below, what are your favorite movies of all time? Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and have a far off night.